premise answers a question, what's a story about? So imagine if you have a friend who's recommending a book or a movie, you're going to go, what's it about? What they would answer would basically be the premise, the concise, quick summary of what the story is about. So you're going to want it to be short, ideally one sentence. Think like a movie description on Netflix or the headline of a book description on Amazon. If you can't get it down into a one-sentence format, keep working on that until you could. Because if you can't understand your story in one simple sentence, when people go off to read it or watch it, it's going to feel unfocused to them as well. So you really want to try to get that premise down to one simple sentence before you start writing, because that's going to give you focus that the audience is going to wind up feeling as well. If you have a 100-page screenplay or a 400-page book, getting that concept down into one sentence, I know, could seem really difficult. So you don't want to get everything in there. So it's very important you keep your thinking lean on what really matters in terms of communicating the core idea of the story. So what you're going to want to focus on is the protagonist and some sort of a conflict with other characters. So for instance, a premise of an ex-con living in the wilderness isn't great. The idea of an ex-con is pretty interesting. The idea of the wilderness is pretty interesting, but there's really not any inherent conflict there. An ex-con who comes across a past criminal enemy in the wilderness is now a premise that's workable. So you've got the protagonist, who in this case would be the ex-con, and the villain, who would be the past enemy, now butting heads in the wilderness. You have protagonist and conflict with another character in one sentence. Getting your protagonist and a conflict with another character in your premise means you're off to a great start. But you're going to want to take it one step further and really grab people's attention with your premise. So a tactic to do that is using a contradiction. So the human mind hones in on contradictions. So we're going to catch them and we're going to notice them. So you want to use that when you're trying to catch people's attention by getting them interested in your story. So for instance, let's look at our premise about the ex-con in the wilderness. You could take that one step further and say something like this. A criminal turned family man runs into a former enemy in the wilderness. So the idea of a family man clashing with a criminal enemy is a contradiction there. So you have two things that are on opposite ends of a spectrum, a family man and a criminal by a lot of accounts, and those two things clash in a very contradictory way, and something like that is going to grab the attention of somebody who's checking out a bunch of premises on Netflix or Amazon or whatever it might be. Something like a contradiction could help yours stand out.